All right, ready to dive in. Today we're looking at this idea of the slingshot effect and how it can, well, maybe catapult us toward success.
That's kind of intense.
It is. At least that's what entrepreneur Iman Gadzhi claims. We're going to break down his YouTube video, My Secret to Success, see if this slingshot is more than just a catchy name.
So, is this a real strategy or just hype?
Exactly. Let's find out. So tell us about this Iman Gadzhi. Who is he? Why should we care what he thinks about success?
Well, he's kind of an interesting guy. 19 years old, dropped out of high school, and somehow runs two successful businesses.
Really? That young?
Yep. Got an advertising agency, IG Media, and an online education company called Grow Your Agency. Pretty wild, right?
Definitely makes you wonder what he's doing differently.
Right. Is there something we're all missing?
All right, so what is this slingshot effect he keeps talking about?
It's an analogy. Think of pulling back a slingshot.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
The further you pull back, the more effort, the more time you invest, the bigger the payoff when you let go. More power, bigger launch.
So it's like building up potential energy.
Yeah, exactly. And then releasing it to, propel yourself forward.
Okay, I'm kind of getting it, but can you give us a real-world example?
Sure. Let's say you're working on a project, right? You've been at it for, 4 or 5 hours. You're starting to feel that pull to just chill, maybe watch some Netflix or go out with friends.
Oh, I know that feeling all too well.
Right, but that's letting go of the slingshot too soon. What if you push through, dedicate the whole day to focused work?
So you're saying that's like pulling back further, storing more energy for a bigger impact.
Exactly. And it's not just about a single day. It's weeks, months, even years of work. Like Gadzhi talks about these entrepreneurs who are constantly traveling, always on the go.
Always living the dream on Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. But they're never really building momentum. It's like they're taking these mini vacations from their own success, never letting that slingshot fully charge.
So consistency is key.
Absolutely. And Gadzhi, he's like a walking example of this. From a young age, he was all about personal growth. Reading a book a week, hitting the gym, meditating.
Wait, hold on. While his friends were out partying?
Yep, pretty much. While everyone else was having the typical teenage experience, he was loading his slingshot.
Makes you wonder if he felt like he was missing out.
Right. Or did he strategically choose what to miss out on? It's an interesting question. And it ties into this idea of private victories that he talks about a lot.
Private victories. Okay, I'm intrigued. Break that down for us. What are those?
Basically, stuff nobody sees. The sacrifices, the grind, the daily effort that goes on behind the scenes, the building blocks for those public victories.
I see. The flashy stuff, the things everyone sees and envies, like the fancy cars, the expensive clothes.
Exactly. It's easy to get caught up in those, but Gadzhi's saying the real work, the real foundation, it's all those private victories that nobody sees.
So it's like the iceberg analogy. The tip is the public victory, but there's this massive, unseen effort underneath it all.
Right. And Gadzhi really emphasizes that those years of stacking these positive habits, they were what led to his breakthrough. He was putting in the work for 3 years, making only $1,500 a month.
Isn't this rough?
Right. But then, boom, in the next 18 months, his income skyrocketed. He was making $250,000, $300,000 a month.
Wow. Talk about delayed gratification.
Exactly. So how much pulling back is enough? Is there a risk of burnout?
Yeah, that's a good question. How do you find the balance? It sounds like Gadzhi is super dedicated, even choosing not to drink on vacation, prioritizing work over socializing.
Well, it comes down to your own definition of success, right?
Yeah.
What are you willing to sacrifice? Gadzhi doesn't want to be the next Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk. He knows that level of success probably requires more than he wants to give up.
So self-awareness is key. Knowing your limits, setting realistic expectations.
Exactly. And then it's about choosing the right effort, evaluating your options, focusing on activities with the biggest potential payoff. It's not just working hard, it's working smart.
Okay, I like that. So how do we make sure our private victories are actually moving us towards those public victories? Give us the goods.
Well, for starters, setting SMART goals.
Yeah.
Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
SMART goals. Okay. So not just saying I want to be successful.
Right, exactly. What does success look like to you? Launching a business, writing a book, landing that dream job. Get super clear on what you're aiming for.
So having a clear target makes those private victories feel more meaningful.
Definitely. It's not just random hustle. It's focused effort, towards something specific.
Makes sense. Okay, what else?
Time blocking. This one's huge. Basically, you intentionally carve out time for those private victory activities.
So instead of just letting the day get away from you.
Yeah. You're proactively scheduling time for deep work, for learning, for building those skills.
It's like giving those private victories a VIP reservation on your calendar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No more, oh, I'll get to it when I have time. It's this time is reserved for my goals, no exceptions.
I like that. Okay, what else can we do?
Don't underestimate accountability. Find a mastermind group, get yourself a mentor, even just tell a friend what you're working towards.
Oh yeah, like having someone to check in with, to share your progress and struggles even.
Right, it can make a huge difference. Kind of like having your own personal cheerleader in your corner.
Okay, that makes sense. So you've got your SMART goals, your time blocking, you've got your accountability buddy. But what about those moments when you're just like tempted to give in? You know, the immediate gratification monster rears its ugly head.
Oh yeah, that's when you got to really tap into your why. Like visualize yourself achieving those public victories.
So like really feel what it would be like to reach that goal.
Exactly. Feel the excitement, the satisfaction, the sense of accomplishment.
Almost like having that vision board, right? Or a screenshot of your dream bank account balance as your phone wallpaper. A constant reminder of where you're headed.
Yep, exactly. And don't be afraid to, reward yourself along the way. Celebrating those private victories, even the small ones, helps you stay motivated and builds momentum.
It's like, hey, I finished that tough chapter of my book. Time for a fancy latte.
Right. It's not about denying yourself. It's about, aligning those rewards with your goals.
Finding that balance between discipline and enjoyment.
Oh,
Okay, so the slingshot effect, it's not about making yourself miserable.
no, definitely not. It's about giving yourself the power to achieve those big, ambitious things you really want.
And realizing that sometimes those big public victories, well, they come from embracing all those smaller, less glamorous private victories along the way.
Exactly. And, it's about trusting the process. Like with Gadzhi, there might be this period of slow growth where you're
Yeah.
putting in the work but not seeing those results right away.
The loading phase.
Yeah. Building tension, stacking those habits, laying the foundation for that big launch. And speaking of which, it's kind of interesting how Gadzhi thinks about his potential future. What his life might look like at 25. He's got these two different scenarios in mind.
Oh, yeah. I remember that from the video.
Sure.
So what are those contrasting paths he sees for himself?
In one, he's continuing on this track, making multi-seven figures, living comfortably, moderate spending on like social events and stuff.
Sounds pretty good to me.
Right. But then he compares that to this like much bigger vision, earning 8 figures, making big investments, going to extravagant events. And get this, he wants to do a ton of philanthropy, donating millions each year to build schools and stuff.
So it's not even just about the money for him. It's about like the impact he can make.
Exactly. And this comparison, it really highlights a key point about this whole slingshot effect. How big your launch is, how much success you achieve, it's directly tied to how much pulling back you're willing to do.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. You kind of got to tailor it to your own ambitions.
Right. And again, self-awareness is so important. Being honest with yourself about what you really want and how much you're willing to give up to get there. No right or wrong answer. It's just about finding the path that feels right for you.
This makes me think, how do you balance that desire for the public victories with the focus on the private ones? Like, if we're not supposed to chase those external things, then what's the point of all this work?
That's a great question. And it gets to the heart of, I think, what Gadzhi's trying to say. He's not saying public victories are bad or that you shouldn't enjoy the rewards. It's more that the real fulfillment, that deep satisfaction, it comes from the journey itself.
The dedication, the growth, the journey.
Right. And that's where his example of that $60,000 watch comes in.
Oh, yeah. He's got like a whole watch collection worth over $500,000, right?
Something like that, yeah. Which is like a pretty obvious public victory. But he's saying it's not really about the watches themselves.
So it's not just showing off.
No, not at all. For him, those watches, they're like trophies, but not for winning some game. It's like trophies for winning against himself, for overcoming those urges to give in, for showing up day after day and putting in the work.
So each one tells a story, not just look how rich I am, but look how much effort went into this. Those years of discipline, the sacrifices, all those unseen private victories that led to this very tangible, very expensive public victory.
Exactly. But it doesn't have to be a watch, right? It could be anything, any goal, any dream. The point is, the real reward is in the journey, the growth, the person you become along the way.
And that brings up a pretty big question for our listeners. What are those private victories that you're willing to embrace today in order to reach those public victories 5 years from now?
Yeah, it's so easy to fall into that trap of comparison, right? Like, oh, look at them, they've got it all figured out. But it sounds like maybe we need to shift our focus inward a bit. Exactly. Instead of looking at someone else's, I don't know, fancy car and getting envious, maybe ask yourself, what kind of private victories did they have to stack to get there?
It's like a reminder that success isn't usually like an overnight thing.
Right. It's usually years of dedication, perseverance, all those little choices that add up over time. Like, you know how a recipe has all those different ingredients? The private victories are like those ingredients, and the public victory is the final dish.
Oh, I like that.
It just shows how the journey itself shapes the outcome. Those private victories, they're not just a means to an end, they're actually a big part of the success story.
Like shaping you along the way.
Yeah.
Building resilience, teaching you those tough lessons.
Exactly. And that transformation, that inner growth, that's what makes those public victories so much more meaningful.
They're not just a reward, but like a reflection of who you've become on the journey.
That's a great way to put it. And it brings us back to this core idea of the slingshot effect. It's not just about achieving success, it's about becoming the kind of person who, well, attracts success.
So it's less about hitting a specific target and more about like becoming the kind of person who just naturally hits targets.
Right. Developing the habits, the mindset, the character traits that kind of make success inevitable. And I think that's like the most empowering takeaway from this whole conversation. This slingshot effect, it's not a magic formula or anything.
Not a get-rich-quick scheme.
No, definitely not. It's more like a philosophy, a way of life, a commitment to, constant growth.
So it's about owning your journey. Choosing to embrace those private victories, even when they're hard, when they're not Instagram-worthy.
Yeah.
Because they're shaping you into the best version of yourself.
Yeah, and setting you up for really incredible things. And it's about recognizing that the real reward, it's not just in reaching the destination, it's enjoying every step along the way.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the slingshot effect, we challenge you to think about your own journey. What private victories are you willing to embrace? What choices are you ready to make to, launch yourself towards your version of success?
Remember, it's not about instant results or those overnight transformations. It's consistency, discipline, and truly believing in yourself.
It's about loading that slingshot every single day, knowing that each private victory is building momentum, getting you ready for that launch that'll take you further than you ever thought possible.
Keep those slingshots loaded, keep pushing forward, keep growing. And remember, that journey is just as rewarding as the destination.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep aiming high.